just like to remind everybody that we are recording this for cable. So if you're not comfortable being seen, this is a good time to turn off your camera. We're so glad to have one of our favorite presenters, Joanne DiPietro, here today with us to talk about year-end gifting. This feels very important this year since a lot of families won't be able to get together. A lot of seniors might be thinking about sending monetary gifts to loved ones. And so very important to follow some guidelines. And we're so lucky to have Joanne here to reinforce that and share the updates with us. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate it. I love being here. Thank you for inviting me for today. So some of the information that we go over when we talk about estate planning is gifting. And gifting is important for a couple of different reasons. But what we're going to talk about is how it has consequences on your estate tax. We're talking about year-end gifting within the calendar year, which is soon to end. Within the year of 2020, you can gift up to $15,000 to a person per year without incurring any gift tax. So let's just talk about that for a minute. Why is there a gift tax? Well, there's a gift tax because the IRS likes to keep track of what we're doing with our money. So if you gift more than $15,000 per person to in a year, whether it's cash, a check, or something of value, whether it's jewelry or perhaps a car, automobile, or something like that. If it's over $15,000, you're responsible to file what's called a gift tax return with your personal tax return that's due in April of 2021 to tell the IRS what you have gifted out in the value. So what happens with that is, if you are gifting under the threshold, which for the year 2021, the threshold will be $11.7 million. If you gift more than that, what will happen is then you will have a gift tax consequence. So the IRS just wants you to file a gift tax return, but there'll be no gift taxes owed. And who files the return? The person that gives the gift, the giftor, not the giftee, the person that gets it. So the tax consequences on the person that gifts it out. So again, why do we want to gift? What's the purpose of gifting? Well, one, we want to be generous, but we always want to make sure that we are keeping enough reserves, liquid reserves, for us to live on as well. That's one thing that's very important. And as you become older, you perhaps may need additional funds to care for you. And it's important that you have that nice balance between gifting and also keeping money available for your own personal use. So we use the gifting to reduce or avoid a Massachusetts estate tax rate. So let's talk about estate taxes for a second. We know that adage, when you're alive, you pay income taxes, and when you're deceased, you have to pay taxes again, which is too bad, actually. But what we're talking about here is reducing that gift tax consequence that happens upon someone's date of death. Upon someone's death, the IRS takes what's called a snapshot in time, and they look at their assets. Okay, so that's one of the responsibilities when we talk about wills and we talk about personal representatives. What is their job? Their job is to marshal all the assets of the estate and make an accounting of what is available as of that decedent's date of death, what they exactly owned. So then what we do is we look at the schedules of credits, unified credits. Massachusetts, for estate taxes, used to piggyback the federal. And as the federal went up, the Massachusetts estate tax threshold went up. What does the threshold mean? You can die with this amount of money without paying taxes. But then what happened was the federal was going up and up and up, which this year it's 11.5 million. And Massachusetts said, oh, wait a minute, we're missing out on taxes here. So what they did is they implemented statutory law that said the threshold was $1 million. In Massachusetts, you can have $1 million worth of assets before you have to start paying an estate tax to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Now, if you have a spouse, it would actually be $2 million. And with proper planning, there wouldn't be a taxable event upon the second person to die. Okay, so that's important to keep to keep note of that, because that's also a way to bring down the estate tax consequence with couples. So the Massachusetts threshold is $1 million. The federal threshold for this year is 11.5. It'll be 11.7 next year. So as you can see, there are 2 estate taxes that are due upon someone's death. If you don't meet the threshold, then an estate tax isn't due. So let's just use a hypothetical that we have someone that perhaps has 1.1 million, and this is a single individual person upon their date of death. Now, rewind a little bit and let's talk about gifting prior to that date of death, which will assist to get their estate tax value below that 1 million threshold. So if you have children, if you have nieces, if you have nephews, and even outside of your family, you can give up to $15,000 per person per year, and you won't have to pay a gift tax or file a gift tax return on that. So it's important that you look at, what's going on. So another hypothetical is what people will do is if their child is purchasing perhaps a new home and they're gifting them the deposit, the down payment in order to purchase the home. And let's say they give them $115,000. Well, the first $15,000 is excluded from that gift tax return, but you would have to file a gift tax return for that remaining $100,000. Okay, let's talk about a different scenario. If you have a son who is married, you can give your son $15,000 and you can give the spouse $15,000. So that's $30,000 right there. And then if they have 3 children, you can give each child another 15. So that's another $45,000. So now we're up to $75,000 in gifting. So using the hypothetical of our person that has $1.2 million, if they give $75,000 away in the year 2020, and then perhaps another $75,000 away in the year 2021, we're bringing them below the threshold. Okay, so why do we want to do that? We want to do that because if you're over $1 million, even $1,001,001, then the state starts taxing your estate, you and your estate, after the first $40,000. So they give you a break on the first $40,000. And the taxes for the next year coming up will range anywhere from 0.8% to 16%. Okay, so if you're just over $1 million, 1.5 million, it'll probably be on the lower end. But still, the purpose of what we're talking about today is using gifting not only to get, like Carrie said, in the event you haven't seen your family or whoever it may be, and that would be, your end of year holiday gift to someone, but it'll also help you through the years to help get your estate below that $1 million threshold, $1 million threshold. That's really it. I know it sounds complicated, but it's when we talk about estate planning, that's what we're doing here. We're planning for the future. And as I say to all my clients, I handle different areas of law. Estate planning can sometimes be the hardest because we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know when something's going to happen, when there's going to be a death or an incapacity. So we have to make the best of what we can do. And gifting is a great way to reduce your estate while you're alive. But remember, you always need to keep in mind that if you are giving your liquid funds away, you have given them away. They now belong to the person, that you have given them to. So as a side note, some people will ask me, well, if I give my son $15,000, they can keep that for me, right? Well, sure, they can give it back to you if they want to, but you've lost dominion and control over it. They are now the owner of it, which now makes it subject also to their creditors. So if they have a creditor coming after them for non-payment of something, that $15,000 can now be subjected to that creditor's claim. So it's very important to remember that as well. So I think that this is probably a really good time for us to open up to any questions. You may have a question that someone else may be thinking as well.
when you're talking $1 million in assets, is that including everything like your house and whatever?
Great question. Thank you, Laurel. That's a great question. Yes, it does include everything. It includes the value of your home, any savings accounts, checking accounts, CDs, investment accounts, IRAs, pensions, and life insurance policies. People
Yeah.
seem to think that life insurance policies aren't included because you don't have dominion and control during your lifetime. You actually do, because some of them you can stop paying on. Most of them you can get the value of the policy during your lifetime. So if you have a $500,000 life insurance policy, that can actually throw you over the edge that people kind of forget about. So yes, anything that you have dominion and control over, something that you can utilize, is includable in your assets as of your date of death.
And you know what? I'm curious about jewelry. You know, if somebody's giving jewelry away, you know, they're probably not getting it assessed. They're just giving the jewelry and not even thinking about it being a gift.
So that would be the responsibility of the personal rep. Oh, you mean during their lifetime?
No, say a spouse passes, okay, and there's jewelry, and so the other spouse says, "Here, take the jewelry," but it's worth substantial amounts of money, but they're not looking at it as a gift.
So it's not a gift. If it's post-death, then who was that jewelry left to? Was it left to the spouse?
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's the spouse's asset.
Okay.
So it's not that the estate is gifting it out. It's now the spouse's asset, and the spouse can gift it out.
Okay, all right. But I mean, do people keep track of that?
If it's substantial amount of jewelry, you know, the value of it, it's the responsibility of the personal representative of the estate to have it, you know, some sort of valuation done on it. So that goes to the administration of the estate and the duties and the
it would be up to
obligations.
It would be up to the gift giver.
Well, the gift giver has to be alive, but they can place a bequest within their will or their memorandum of intention for, let's say, a diamond ring. They can do that, and then that gets given post-death. That does not fall into the gifting rules.
Okay, gotcha.
Gifting rules are only while you're alive.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Okay. Yep. Great. The levels are much higher than I remember them being a few years ago.
Yeah, they've increased, which is good. You know, based upon everything increasing, you know, the value of everything, home, whatever it might be. The sticking point is that $1 million that Massachusetts put in as a statutory threshold.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds ironic, but $1 million isn't too much when you take into the value of your home, a couple of investments, and then again, you throw a $500,000 life insurance policy in there, and you know, some of the widows that I work with, all of a sudden they have a taxable estate when they'll die. So this is a very common technique that we will use to try to help them get below the threshold so their families are not paying estate taxes upon their death.
Yep. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
I have a question.
Good.
Yes.
My name's Dorothy. I remember when my father passed on years ago, and you did touch upon it a little, what you were saying right now. When somebody dies, they like tax them again. And I know like my daughter studied law for like a year, and she used to use the word reasonable a lot. Is something reasonable? You know, I never thought it was reasonable at the time, like if they wanted to tax a dead person. It's like, well, you know, he paid all his taxes. He had like, I don't know how many, 200 sick days when he died. He didn't even take them, so working for the city of Boston. Like, why would, you know, they want to tax a dead person? You know, again, when he paid up everything from federal and state taxes, all the taxes they ever wanted when he was alive. Why do they want to tax him again, a dead person?
That's the IRS code.
But I mean, there's no reason. I want to always try to, like she said, reasonable, you know, lawyers, you know, that's what they study. What is reasonable? I don't see any reasonableness behind that. Do you?
Well, no, I don't. But that's because I don't want to pay taxes either. We work very hard and we pay income tax when we're alive. But it is the law. It's the IRS code, and then the Massachusetts Department of Revenue has the code with respect to the $1 million threshold in the statutory law. So that is, again, the reason why you need to estate plan. Some people that have large estate plans, what they do, and numerous assets, sometimes what they do is estate plan by way of using insurance policies to pay any estate tax consequence. There's many ways to try to limit the estate tax threshold consequence upon an estate. So that's why it's really important that if you're even close to a taxable estate, that you should meet with an attorney to assist you with that, and perhaps even a CPA or an investment advisor. But all the more reason to have your estate plan reviewed every few years too, because things do change. My clients, when they leave here, when we put their package, their estate plan in a pretty little bow and they're on their way, they said, when do I have to come back? Well, I like to speak with my clients every few years, but I stress that they need to tell me if something in their life happens, whether it's, good or bad, a birth, a death, you win the lottery, you have to file bankruptcy. Those are the type of things that can have consequences on your estate documents.
And especially if somebody has moved away, and I realized too, when they had passed on, and I don't know if a lot of people do realize that, and even when my sister passed on, if they haven't told you much where their savings accounts were, it's very difficult. I mean, they have this, if somebody, what is it, mass, whatever it is that you can call that,
Yeah.
I think the one I'm talking about, that, that somebody's lost wages or whatever. But I found that, if somebody didn't actually tell you where their money was, I don't care if it's under their mattress. I mean, not that they did that, but I mean, if somebody, that's just an example, if someone didn't tell you where things were, then you're not going to know that easily where they were. And they could be lost forever. Right. And that's sad. And when you said they should keep in touch with you, yes, because if they, moved out, if, you had a fight with whoever, that you just gifted something to, and then you're wondering if are they going to keep it intact or not with the difficulty in relations. I mean, there's a lot that goes on socially and, moving wise. And so they should definitely keep a very good rapport with you.
Yeah, it's important. Part of the process that we do is we have our clients complete an estate planning questionnaire. I'm not going to lie, it's kind of long, because the longer I practice law, the longer it gets, because things pop up, and it helps people to get organized. And after I torture them, they're very happy, because what we've done is we've really put everything together for them. So, God forbid, when something does happen and I get a phone call, I can say, well, when I met with them in December of 2020, this is what I know. So it's a really good footprint. And now 22 years later that I've been practicing, it's flowing nicely, which makes me happy and makes my clients happy too, because we can see the effort that we've put in 10, 15 years ago. It's all worth the effort right now. So it is important for that. The other, the thing is, when you pick your durable power of attorney, your healthcare proxy, most of durable power of attorney, when we're talking about financials, that it is somebody that has some sort of knowledge of what's going on in your life. That's an important thing to do. And, quite frequently that'll be the same person that's the personal representative of your estate. But it is, it's important to keep the communication open, because again, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know when something's going to happen. And, unfortunately things do happen. That's why they're called accidents. And if you become incapacitated, not even death, if you become incapacitated, sometimes that's almost harder, because we need money immediately to still continue to take care of this person, and we don't know where it is. So it's just important to have lists of, different things. Sometimes we'll start with their prior year tax return as investigating, to do some research to find out some information. So you're absolutely right, Dorothy. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Joanne, we always stress too, thinking about gifting and the look back for Mass Health, which is another crystal ball thing that people can't prepare for, but just knowing that there is that look back period for applying.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And that goes into taking care of yourself too, using funds to take care of yourself. And there's a lot to that conversation, but Carrie is absolutely correct. If you do gift, it could be subject to a look back period. And that's essentially, are you giving money away in order to avoid a creditor? That's what that look back period is about. If you know that you're ill and in the next few years, you're going to have to either enter a nursing home or you'll need 24-hour care within your home, and then you're going to ask the state for assistance, they want to know what you've been doing with your funds. It's just part of becoming eligible for Mass Health Services. And they can look back up to 5 years to see where you have put your funds, whether it's jointly with someone and that other joint person has been taking those funds out, or if you have been gifting. So you're right, Carrie, that's an important part of gifting as well. Thank you. Anyone else?
One last question too, that I knew, if somebody doesn't, because people have said make out a will, which, you know, I have done my own. But they said if you didn't, I just want to, you know, go over it again. I think the probate court told me that if you do not make out a will, then it makes it much more difficult. Other than, you know, say like if you left, you know, funds to, you know, you had, I don't know, the insurance, the life insurance policy. That's like, you know, apart from the probate or something. You know, they get that. You know, if you said they're going to be my beneficiaries, you know, on a life insurance policy. But other than that, you know, our IRAs maybe, you know, are exempt or something that don't have to go through the probate court. But that's what I heard too, that it's going to be a long process, you know, much longer, that people say they needed money to bury you, especially with COVID-19 and people out of jobs now. If they didn't have, as you were saying, the creditors coming after the gift money or whatever, you know, and they could do that, you know, how much more do people maybe not even have the money if they don't have your money you left them, and to get access at that money, that I think people don't realize that too. They have to, like, you know, the loopholes, I guess, from what I understand, are, you know, life insurance policy beneficiaries, they don't go through the probate court. So if they needed money to bury you with, they don't have to worry about that. Do you know what I mean?
You're absolutely right, Dorothy, and you've hit on some excellent points that we can review. So you're right on the life insurance policy. That's a contractual obligation. So provided the schedule of beneficial interest has been completed and it's completed correctly, because some people during their lifetime have an idea of changing their beneficial interest, whether it's because they have more children or less children, or they have a new spouse or an old spouse, whoever they're going to give it to, they need to make sure that they've updated their schedule of beneficial interest. Now, with respect to a probate being longer because you don't have a will, that's not necessarily true, because we do have statutory law of intestacy as to where your estate would go. Now, one of the premises that we always talk about with estate planning, it's so that you are heard, not only when you have incapacity and you can't vocalize, but also upon your date of death, so that you can be heard. So if you want to give your funds, your assets, to a particular person, it's better for it to be by way of a will. Otherwise, it will be going by statutory law. You're completely right on that. Now, again, going back to the probate being longer, it wouldn't be longer, but at that point then, who would the personal representative be? It would be better if you had a will, because then you appointed, I want John Smith to be the personal representative of my estate. I am giving him this fiduciary obligation. So having a written will is absolutely much better than not having one. The other point that you touched upon was on funds. And a lot of people now are actually prepaying their funeral. And what that actually helps to do too is reduce their estate. Okay, so that's another way to reduce your estate to get below the threshold.
Well, I appointed my one of the life insurance policies to be my beneficiary. So in other words, not to be my beneficiary, for the funeral home to be the beneficiary. So I told my kids
Okay, well,
that, you know, one of them is strictly going to be for that.
Right. So you must have a contract with with the?
I have a
funeral?
contract with Hartford Life. In other words, so they know that upon my death that, say Lawler, I think it's Lawler and Dunn, they're going to be the beneficiary,
Right.
for a certain amount of that money,
Right.
to make sure
No,
that everything's in
a very
place,
wise
that
thing
my
to
kids
do.
don't have to do this and run around to do that. I did that for my parents, and, it was very difficult, to get everything in place if you're not sure. They didn't discuss a lot of this stuff with us. So, I mean, I try to be more open with my kids with it because I knew the problems I had at that time, to bury my father, whatever, and figure it all out. And us 3 siblings try to do that. And I'd rather just have it, if it was, done the way I'm doing it, that you just have to go to one source, present the death certificate, that's it, and get it moving. And they don't have to worry about where is this money coming from, especially with people out of jobs or, problem with jobs or problem with their own bills. And, it makes it, I think, a lot easier in this way. That's what I can say. That's what I
You're
saw.
absolutely right, Dorothy. And again, that's all part of planning, and that's what has to be done. No one wants to talk about these things or think about these things happening, but planning is very important. Thank
Right.
you.
My kids didn't want to talk about it either, but, they have to talk about it. It's better now than later because I knew the headache I went through and I didn't want to put that on them. But they can't foresee that because they're young. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to foresee double your age. You're not in that bracket yet. So
Yeah.
they can't even foresee things like that. Some of these people, when they're young, they feel almost invincible. They don't feel like, death is imminent, but COVID-19 today, we don't know who's going to get it. It's like Russian roulette, unless somebody's, mandating we all get that shot. I was talking to Carrie about that earlier. I mean, we don't know. Somebody could be asymptomatic and still pass it on. We don't know who's got what. So, I mean, death could be at our doorstep, whatever,
Yeah, it's a good point.
We do the best we can.
Any other questions or comments on gifting or estate planning?
I missed your name coming in. I came in a little bit late. What is your name?
Joanne DiPietro.
Oh, DiPietro. And where are you out of?
My office is on Main Street in Walpole.
Okay, so and you're what type of lawyer?
I handle primarily estate planning, elder law, guardianships, probates, and then pretty much the other half is everything that has to do with real estate, residential, commercial real estate, all facets of it, and then some corporate law.
So if my brother ever needed anything for elder law, because he's in a nursing home, he could probably contact you then.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, great. That's good. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thanks, Joanne. Always so good to have you with us.
Well, thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.
And we'll post this to Cable. So if someone missed it or they found it helpful and wanted to share it with someone else, it will be viewable there and posted on our social media as well.
Great. Thanks, Carrie. Well, we'll see everyone at the holiday stroll in a couple of weeks.
Yes, sign up. Come visit us.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks so much.
So long.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you.
Bye-bye.